I wish Feyre had drawn her dagger in the throne room, then maybe somebody would have killed her and the story would be over. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and we're back with the read-along for A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. We'll make it to chapters 34 to 36 this time. It starts off well because Feyre's rescue attempt obviously didn't go as intended and she was captured in the hallway straight away by the Atto, who now drags her to the throne room. Should mention that while she's getting dragged along, she thinks, oh, he didn't even check me for weapons because, well, I guess he's not worried about me attacking him, so I guess I don't try. She gets to the throne room, is surrounded by fairies and high fae, and sees Amarantha for the first time. And she remarks that while she's pretty or lovely, she's nowhere near as devastatingly beautiful as she expected the fairy queen to be. And of course, she's also a redhead, because redheads can only ever be protagonists or villains. There is no in-between for us. But then she also describes that Amarantha has a bit of a sneer on her face, like permanently apparently. I guess that just comes with it having nothing but disdain for everything and everybody around you. But then she also hits you with, to try to paint her would have driven her to madness. I was like, why? Is this sneer hard to capture, or... Because if you already described her as, yeah, pretty, but not as devastatingly beautiful as I expected, then how is she hard to capture for you? While Feyre is on the ground, she also contemplates, if I shifted my arm, I could get to my dagger. And then what? In the hallway, you decided that you can't even take on the Atto by himself, who is still standing behind her at this point. But now that you're surrounded by high fae and faerie, you think your lone dagger, where I still don't know whether it's actually effective against fairies in the first place, that would help you now. Feyre is really a character that is too dumb to live. If she had a place in the real world, she wouldn't have lived long. I'm still shocked she is still alive in this world. I mean, comes with being a Mary Sue and protagonist, sure, but... damn. She does try some strategy though. Would it be better to kill the Atto first or go straight for Amarantha? You're not going to achieve either. You can try to get up and go for your dagger and then see how many steps towards Amarantha you manage before something stabs you, slashes you, or whatever. Dumbass. Feyre declares that she's here to claim the one she loves, Tamlin, and Amarantha is amused. Also because Tamlin apparently just sat by while she tortured Claire to death. Just to protect Feyre. And Feyre is standing there like, you tortured somebody? It's like, woman, you've known this for some time now. What? Oh, the idiocy of this character. It hurts my brain reading this, seriously. Amarantha is still keeping Claire's corpse around, by the way. It's nailed to the wall and you can see signs of torture. And Feyre feels guilty about this for a minute. It's like, oh no, she's here because I named her. But then she decides that Claire's sacrifice should not be in vain and she will do everything in her power to get everybody out of there. Sure, I'm sure Claire's family is very appreciative of this. Amarantha considers how Feyre claimed Tamlin for herself, and she talks to a finger bone she wears on a necklace and an eyeball that is encased in glass she wears on a ring. Great jewelry taste fairies have there. But she talks to those pieces as if they actually understood her, and calls them Jurian, the lover of her sister that she killed. And Feyre instantly jumps to the conclusion, oh my god, she captured his soul in those two pieces of his body and he's trapped in there forever. You haven't seen enough fairy magic to assume that that's actually a thing. She doesn't know whether fairies are capable of capturing souls at all, but that's instantly what she goes for, like this is what's happening. It later turns out that is actually what is happening, but I don't see how Feyre would have possibly known this. But it's okay, she only jumps to conclusions when it's kind of helpful for the story and is a complete idiot in every other situation. For some reason that I couldn't possibly tell you, Amarantha feels like playing with Feyre. and offers her that Feyre can participate in 3 challenges or solve a riddle, and then Tamlin could be hers, and if she doesn't manage, then Tamlin belongs to Amarantha. Tamlin already belongs to Amarantha because he lost his own curse or bet or whatever to her, but never mind that. Amarantha feels like playing some more, and Feyre can join. And while Feyre waits for those challenges to come around, because they will only happen at every full moon, because of course you would drag this out for like 3 fucking months, but what else? You know, you need to entertain yourself somehow if you're a high fae living under the mountain, I guess. But in the meantime, Feyre is supposed to work in the palace and, I don't know, clean or whatever, to earn her keep. And this seems so drawn out and silly. Also, it would definitely put Feyre at a disadvantage, because nobody did say that they would have to treat her well in between those challenges or in general. So the less time she would spend in this fairy castle, the better for her, but no, she agrees to the conditions. And then the Atta and some other fairies beat the crap out of Feyre. And she gets dragged back to the dungeon. In chapter 35, Feyre wakes up in her dungeon, bruised with a broken nose and generally feeling pretty crap, unsurprisingly. But it's okay, as soon as the guards are drunk, which is apparently a thing. I guess nobody really cares about security in Amarantha's castle, who knows, but as soon as the guards are drunk, Lucien comes by and fixes her up a bit. And he also tells her that it is indeed Julian's soul trapped in those pieces of his body that Amarantha is now carrying around to punish him for what he did. And I stand by what I said before. I have no idea why Feyre would know this by herself. And also, it's still Julian's soul in there because, what's her name? Amarantha's sister, Cliffia? Cliffia promised him eternal life. So fairies can just bestow eternal life on you now, just by saying so? Great. I kind of doubt it, but okay. Sometime later, possibly days, I'm not quite sure about the timeline here, Feyre gets dragged back to the throne room because Amarantha wants to know her name. And Feyre refuses to tell her anything, so she drags Lucien to the front instead, and then calls in Rysand as well, because Rysand is the one who dragged Claire back there, apparently, and Amarantha wants to know how he could look at this girl that is nailed to the wall still. She's now a permanent decoration in this throne room, apparently. How he could look at this girl and not be able to tell that it's not the same girl he saw at Tamlin's mansion. And Rysand is just like, yeah, they all look the same to me. I don't fucking know. It's like, yeah, okay, that's very convincing. We're all so convinced by this act. Wonderful, thank you, Rysand. And then she tells Rysand to get Feyre's name out of Lucien. So he starts digging around in his mind, and Lucien holds. His brothers also make an appearance, by the way. They are there to sneer at Lucien, I guess, and delight in the torture he currently goes through or whatever. But Lucien holds, and Feyre decides, no, I don't want to see him suffer, so she tells Amarantha her name. I don't see why they make such a fuss about it. It's not like knowing Feyre's name gives Amarantha any power over her. That has already happened when Feyre agreed to the challenges or riddle to get Tamlin back, so she really doesn't need her name. But Feyre has to show us how stubborn and strong she is, and how compassionate towards Lucien, maybe? I don't know. It just seems a bit pointless. I'm also not sure why Rysand is supposed to dig around in Lucien's mind to begin with. He could have just gone straight for Feyre, and we already know that she has zero resistance to this. But it would have been too easy, I guess. Amarantha does give her the riddle now that could instantly save everybody from the Spring Court and free Feyre. Those are the conditions. You can do those 3 challenges, or you solve this riddle at any time, and you can all go, and it's fine. Once again, I don't see why Amarantha would actually stick to this, or how she's really bound by this, because the conditions seemed very, I don't know, fluffy and blurred before, with the curse for Tamlin and whatnot, but whatever. She gives her the riddle. And do let me know in the comments how soon you would have walked out of this throne room. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. I'm sorry to say this, but if Feyre was a little bit smarter, she would have walked out of there instantly, because I can tell you what the answer is, and I think you can all tell as well, so... Yeah, but Feyre doesn't know. Now, the thing I don't understand about this, there is a throne room full of fairies and high fae, and they are immortal, so it stands to reason that there are artists, writers, poets, philosophers, and whatnot among them as well, who had possibly hundreds of years to work on their craft. And you're telling me not a single person from the Spring Court can tell what the answer to this riddle is and sneak it to Feyre? And in particular, because later you see that Rysand is kind of trying to help Feyre as well. He has mind control. He can talk to her in his mind. He could have given her the answer then and there, but doesn't. It later becomes clear that Amarantha forbade everybody from telling Feyre the answer if they know it. But she doesn't say so right then and there, so I don't see how nobody from the Spring Court, Lucian, or even Rysand quickly snuck the answer to Feyre before Amarantha tells them that they can't. Because she's not saying it right here in the scene, Feyre just gets dragged back to her dungeon. And because Amarantha doesn't say it in this scene, anybody who drags her back, well, they probably don't have a massive interest in Feyre winning, but literally anybody she walks past on the way could have whispered the answer to her. And there must be enough people who are out to get Amarantha in this court beyond just the Spring Court. But because Feyre knows her limitations, she instantly goes into sulk mode and just sits in her dungeon to wait for the first challenge. It's like, oh my god, I can't do this, I'm not smart enough, I don't understand the riddle. Yeah, okay. Chapter 36, the first challenge, arrives. Feyre, who spent all this time in the dungeon just sitting around, not earning her keep, but also she only gets moldy food and water, so it's pretty gross. But more than I expected out of Amarantha, to be honest, because she could have just starved Feyre up to this point, and then she might have been too weak to actually compete at all, but whichever. So it wasn't a great time for Feyre. She heads out to her first challenge, gets dropped in a labyrinth of mud and muck and whatnot, and a giant worm comes after her. Just think the sandworms from Dune, but possibly a bit smaller, because I think that would have been a bit oversized even for that. So Feyre runs through this labyrinth trying to get away from this worm, and figures out that it's actually blind and hunts her by smell and possibly noise, I suppose, but mostly smell. She falls into a pit somewhere and finds plenty of bones from his previous meals, including like bones that are kettle-sized, so I guess pretty big and bigger than your average human bone, even than a thigh bone, you know. So. And Feyre starts building spears out of that by breaking bones over her knees and feet to then put them into the ground and create spikes. And a ladder on the side of the wall as well, because she can't climb out because it's too muddy and slidey and whatnot. Now, I'm not sure that you can break bones this easily, especially not if they're like bigger bones from like a cow or something even bigger than that. But apparently Feyre's knees can do that. I don't know. I know the limit for my knees is a certain thickness of branch, but okay. She does it with bone and lures the worm back into the pit. It falls onto the bone spikes and dies. It's worth mentioning that she almost got eaten in between, but Lucian risked his life yelling at her where the worm, like which side the worm is coming from, because she couldn't tell at that moment. And he will regret that, but it's not as bad as I would have assumed given Amarantha's reputation. But anyway, thanks to Lucian, Feyre actually makes it through this. But when she drops into the pit again to lure the worm there, she hurts herself as well, and she ends up with a bone through her arm. Sounds pretty nasty. But then when she gets dragged out of this pit and labyrinth and dropped in front of Amarantha, she hits you with stuff. Had there not been an insurmountable trench between us, I would have ripped her throat out. Some day, if I lived through this, I would skin her alive. Girl, holy hell. There is such a thing as justified revenge, even if this includes murder, because, you know, I mean, given what Amarantha has done so far, I can kind of see why you would want her dead. Yes, makes sense. You want to kill her, so far so good. I mean, you've just seen what she did to Claire, who is still hanging on the wall. So that makes sense. But skinning somebody alive is very different from that. And it kind of makes me wonder how much of a psychopath we're dealing with here, because that is not a normal desire for a human being. Amarantha complains that a lot of fairies lost money betting on this match, because most people assumed that Feyre would die in the first minute or the first 5 minutes. And only one person bet against the worm and assumed that Feyre would win. And right after this comment, Amarantha calls Rhysand over and Feyre gets dragged off. So Feyre doesn't hear this anymore, but it's fairly obvious that Rhysand is the only one who actually placed money on Feyre and is now apparently fairly rich because of it. Now at this point I would expect Amarantha to become highly suspicious of Rhysand. I would have been at this point, but no, she's not, and yeah, you'll see in the coming chapters, but I'm surprised that she lasted so long on the throne, because she doesn't have the mind of a tactician either. Anyway, we now went a little bit Hunger Games in here as well. We have a riddle that is fairly easy to solve. I imagine you have all figured out that the answer to this is love, because fairly easy riddle if you ask me, but okay, Feyre doesn't understand, but sure, whatever. And Feyre just gets more and more unlikable. I didn't think that was even possible, but now aside from being daft and then just displaying childish stubbornness in places where it's just unnecessary, she's now also keen on skinning somebody alive. So very charming indeed. Yeah, well, Tamlin hasn't done much in these 3 chapters, to be honest. All he did is like sit next to Amarantha and try not to look at Feyre too much. Yeah, okay, cool stuff. I mean, it's not like he has much of a choice there, but yeah, whatever. He's apparently still trying to protect her. Wouldn't know how that works after she came into the palace herself, but here we are. And now we have to sit through Feyre working around the palace as well. It's kind of weird, because I was rather bored with the book before, and now it's like there's almost too much going on. Like, you have the political intrigue in the palace, you have the romance that is still waiting to happen, really, or come to its conclusion between Tamlin and Feyre. And now you have those Hunger Game-like challenges as well, and I feel like none of the parts that were put in this book are actually well done enough to justify its success. I don't get why people are so hyped about this book, because the world building is full of holes. The characters are so unlikable at this point, like holy hell. And so many things just don't make any sense. But yeah, at least we're almost at the end, so cool. Look forward to more complaints in the next video, because I'm sure I will find plenty to bitch about. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. Like and subscribe if you want to help the channel out. And thanks for stopping by. Bye!